Hello, everyone. My name is Julie, and I'm one of Christian Assembly's Kingdom Partners, and it is a privilege, as always, to be able to send this message to you today. For today, our reading comes from 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, and I encourage you to read the entire chapter. But at the very end, there's this message that is sent to her followers of Jesus, and it's talking about as people who they've loved have died, that as they grieve, that they can grieve with hope. And I think, coming through this COVID season where there has been so much loss, so much death, so much to grieve, so many people who we've loved who have died. And I think there were a lot of moments where we didn't have the chance to gather in the way that we typically would so that we could mourn with those who mourn. And so there's a lot of grief for many people. And I think it's important, as this verse talks about, that we are to grieve with hope. So first of all, that doesn't mean that we do not grieve. I think about when Jesus visited his friends Mary and Martha, and his friend Lazarus had died, that Jesus wept. He showed up and he wept. He grieved the loss of his friend even before he would come back to life. And he sat, I'm sure, with Mary and Martha, and at other times, to mourn with those who mourn. And that's something that we're called to do. And in our grief, that there's space for us to feel the loss. There's space for us to experience the pain that accompanies death. And then there's also this piece of doing it with hope, which means that we believe that for those who have relationship with Christ, that we're going to see them again, that death is not going to be the final answer. It's not the end, even though for sure it's a loss. It is painful. It is hard. It is something to process. It is something to not brush over. But with the aching and the waiting, there is the longing that one day that we will be together again and be in the presence of Jesus. And I so appreciate in Revelation where it talks about, there's going to be a day where there's no more death, there's no more pain, there's no more tears, and we long for that. But in this season where there is still death, there is still the suffering of this world, there is still the pain and the aching and the longing that fills us, asking God to be our comforter as we go through these seasons, asking God's Holy Spirit to guide us, to remind us of the truth when we feel like we've lost everything, or when death feels permanent, to ask God to continue to remind us of the hope that we have because of Jesus. So friends, as you process this, as you read this, I pray that God will comfort you and me, that he will remind us of the hope that we have because of Jesus, and that he will give us also the grace and the strength and the courage to grieve our losses appropriately, to not brush over them, but to stay planted in the midst of the hard, in the midst of the pain, and to allow God's Spirit, who promises to be near to the brokenhearted, to be our comforter through it all. So be encouraged, friends.